Max had always lived a simple life. He worked on a space station that orbited a distant planet, a place where humans lived side by side with various alien species. He didn't expect much beyond his usual routine, fixing machines, helping with repairs, and occasionally chatting with the crew. But all of that changed the moment he met Princess Zoreth. Zoreth was not like anyone Max had ever seen. She was tall, with skin that shimmered like silver in the light of the stars. Her eyes were a deep purple, and they seemed to see through everything. Max had heard of her before, but he never imagined he would meet her, let alone be chosen by her. It started one quiet morning. Max was fixing a transmission relay when the station's security team suddenly rushed by. Something was happening, and he had no idea what. He had just finished his work when a loud voice echoed through the halls. "Max Davidson, report to the central hall immediately." Max was confused. Why did they want him? He wasn't important. But he couldn't ignore the order, so he walked to the hall, his heart beating faster with every step. When he arrived, he saw a crowd of people gathered around. They were all staring at something or someone. In the center of the room stood Princess Zoreth. Her presence was powerful. She didn't say a word, but everyone fell silent when she entered. Max couldn't help but feel a sense of awe, but also confusion. Why was she here? He had heard stories about Zoreth. She was the ruler of the Yavani people, a powerful alien species from a faraway galaxy. Her people were known for their strength and intelligence, and she was their leader. But what was she doing here? And why was everyone looking at her as if she were a goddess? "Max Davidson," the princess spoke, her voice calm and commanding. "I have chosen you." Max froze. He blinked several times, thinking he had misheard her. "Me?" he asked, not sure what she meant. Zoreth's eyes locked onto his, and for the first time, he felt as though she could see straight through him. "Yes, you are the one I have chosen. You will be the father of my child." The room was silent. Max looked around, wondering if anyone else was as shocked as he was, but they all seemed to be waiting for him to respond. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. "I know you have questions," Zoreth continued, "but time is short. My people are in need of a new generation, a child who can lead them into the future. I believe that a human child, born to both our species, will be the key to that future." Max's head was spinning. This couldn't be real. He was just a normal guy, a mechanic. He wasn't some kind of prince or king. How could someone like him be chosen by an alien princess? "You will come with me to my ship," Zoreth said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "We must leave now. There is no time to waste." Max felt his legs turn to jelly. He had no idea what to say. Part of him wanted to run away, to pretend he had never heard any of this. But another part of him, something deep inside, was curious. What would this mean for him? For the future? Could he really become the father of an alien child? Before he could make up his mind, the princess turned and began to walk toward the door. The security team followed, and Max, still unsure of what to do, found himself walking along with them. As they made their way through the station, Max couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. He had always dreamed of adventure, of something bigger than his simple life as a mechanic. But this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. A child with an alien princess. What kind of life would that lead to? He tried to tell himself that it didn't make sense. There was no way this was real. But the look in Princess Zoreth's eyes told him otherwise. She was serious, and this was happening. He could feel it in the air around him. His life was about to change forever. They'd reached the docking bay, where a sleek, silver ship waited. It was unlike anything Max had ever seen. It looked like a living creature, with smooth curves and shimmering light. The doors opened, and he stepped inside, the gravity of the situation slowly sinking in. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was calm, almost peaceful. The princess sat in a chair, her eyes still focused on Max. "I know this is difficult to understand," she said, her voice softer now. "But I have chosen you because of your strength. I believe that together we can create something powerful, something that will change everything." Max sat across from her, still trying to process what was happening. "But why me?" he asked again. I'm just a mechanic." Zorith smiled, a rare, soft smile. "It is not just your skills that matter. It is your heart, your humanity. You are strong in ways that I have seen in no other species. Your people have survived countless challenges. That is why I chose you." Max didn't know how to respond to that. Part of him still couldn't believe it was real. But another part of him, something deep inside, was starting to believe her. Maybe this was his chance for something bigger. Maybe this was the adventure he had been waiting for. As the ship took off into the stars, Max looked out at the vastness of space, wondering what his future would hold. One thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. Alien culture and customs. Max couldn't believe how quickly his life had changed. Just days ago, he was a simple mechanic on a space station, fixing broken machines and following orders. Now he was on a ship with Princess Zorith, an alien ruler from a faraway planet, and she had chosen him to be the father of her child. Everything about this new life felt strange, yet exciting. The ship was silent, except for the hum of its engines. Max sat across from Zorith, trying to absorb what was happening. He had so many questions, but he didn't know where to start. Zorith seemed calm, almost relaxed, but Max could feel the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about a child. This was about two very different cultures coming together, and he had no idea what he was getting into. "We have a long journey ahead," Zorith said, her voice steady and strong. "I will explain more about my people, their customs, and what will happen next." Max nodded, still unsure of what to expect. Zorith began to speak, and Max listened carefully, trying to understand this alien world. "My people, the Yavani, are a proud species. We are known for our strength, intelligence, and ability to adapt to any environment," Zorith explained. "We live on a planet called Yavora, a place where the seasons change quickly, and survival is a constant challenge. My people have always been warriors, but we are also scholars. We believe in learning from every species we meet." Max tried to picture Yavora. He imagined a harsh world, with mountains and deserts, where only the strongest could survive. But there was something in Zorith's eyes that told him her people were not just about fighting. There was a wisdom there, something he hadn't expected. Zorith continued, "But there is a problem. Our people are growing weaker. We need a new generation to lead us. That is why I came to Earth. Your species, humans, are strong in ways we are not. Your ability to adapt, your creativity, your resilience, these are qualities we admire. I believe a child born from both of us will be a leader, someone who can guide us into a new era." Max listened, his mind racing. He had never thought of humans in that way. On Earth, they were just people, trying to survive and build better lives for themselves. But here, in this alien world, humans were seen as special, even extraordinary. "But why me?" Max asked, still confused. "Why choose me to be the father?" Zorith's gaze softened. "I chose you because of your spirit. You are brave, even when you don't know what's coming. And you are kind. Those are qualities we value deeply." Max felt a little better hearing that. He had always tried to do the right thing, to help others when he could. But he still didn't fully understand why it had to be him. He was just an ordinary guy. What did he have to offer the princess and her people? "I know this is a lot to take in," Zorith said, noticing his confusion. "But I need you to understand something. Our cultures are very different, and there will be challenges. I want you to be prepared for what's ahead." Max nodded, still processing everything. He had no idea what challenges she was talking about, but he knew he had to listen if he wanted to make it through this. Zorith stood up and walked over to a control panel. The ship's lights dimmed, and a holographic image appeared in front of her. It showed a tall, alien structure with strange, twisting towers and bright, glowing symbols. It looked unlike anything Max had ever seen. "This is Yavura," Zoreth said, her eyes fixed on the image. "It is a planet of beauty and danger. We have cities, but we also have wilderness. The land is alive, and we have learned to respect it. There are creatures there that are unlike anything you've seen. Some are peaceful, but others are deadly. You will need to be strong if you are to survive on my world." Max's eyes widened. He had never imagined anything like this. He thought he had seen it all on Earth, but this was something else entirely. "What do I need to do?" he asked, feeling nervous. Zoreth looked at him, her expression serious. "First, you must learn our ways. Our customs are different from yours. For example, we do not shake hands as a greeting. Instead, we bow to show respect. You will need to learn how to speak our language too. It will be difficult, but I believe you can do it." Max wasn't sure if he could learn an alien language, but he was willing to try. "Okay, I'll do my best," he said, determined to adapt. Zoreth smiled. "I know you will. You must also understand that we have a different way of thinking. The Yavani value strength, but we also value intellect. We believe that the mind is just as important as the body. Our leaders are chosen not just for their strength, but for their wisdom." Max felt a sense of awe. This was a whole new way of life. He had never thought about strength and intelligence in the same way. On Earth, people were often praised for their physical power or their knowledge. But Zoreth's people seemed to believe in a balance, in the importance of both. "Your child," Zoreth continued, "will be a mixture of both our peoples. They will need to learn both our ways. You and I must work together to teach them." Max looked at the princess, his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea what was coming next, but he knew one thing for sure. He was about to embark on a journey unlike anything he had ever imagined, and he wasn't alone. The proposal to have a child. Max had no idea how his life had come to this point. One moment, he was a mechanic working on a space station, and the next, he was on a strange alien ship with Princess Zoreth. He'd been trying to understand her world, her people, and the strange connection they seemed to share. But today, everything was about to change again. They had been traveling for days, and now the ship was entering a new star system. Max sat in a small room aboard the ship, gazing out of the window at the swirling nebula outside. He had a lot on his mind. The princess had already told him so much about her people, the Yavani, and their way of life. But there was still one thing he didn't understand. Why had she chosen him? Max had tried to ask her, but every time, she would change the subject or speak in vague terms. He was starting to feel like he was in way over his head. He couldn't stop thinking about the child they were supposed to have together. What would that mean for both of them? Could a human and an alien really create something powerful? The idea seemed impossible, but Zoreth seemed so sure. That afternoon, the princess summoned him again. Her voice echoed through the ship's communication system, pulling him from his thoughts. "Max, please join me in the main chamber. There is something important we need to discuss." Max's stomach tightened as he stood up and made his way down the hall. When he entered the main chamber, Zoreth was waiting for him. She looked calm, her eyes focused on him in a way that made him feel both nervous and honored. There was something in her gaze, something that told him this conversation was going to change everything. "Max," she said as he approached, "I know you have been wondering why I chose you. Why I believe you are the right person to father my child." Max didn't know how to answer. He had so many questions, but he wasn't sure how to ask them. Instead, he simply nodded. Zoreth took a deep breath, then spoke again. "I chose you because your species, humans, are unlike anything we have seen. You are adaptable, strong in spirit, and capable of growing in ways that many other species cannot. I have studied Earth, and I have seen what your people are capable of. I believe that a child born of both our peoples could lead us into a brighter future." Max stared at her, still unsure what she meant. But why me? There must be other humans who are stronger, smarter, or more important than I am. Zoreth shook her head gently. It is not just about strength or intellect, Max. It is about something deeper. You have a quality that I admire. You have a sense of honor and courage that many others lack. I have chosen you because I believe you will be a good father, someone who will guide our child with wisdom and care. Max felt a lump form in his throat. He had never thought of himself as a leader or a hero. He was just a guy trying to make a living in space. But here was this powerful alien princess telling him that he was special. The weight of her words hit him hard. He couldn't deny that a part of him felt proud, but another part of him was terrified. Could he really do this? Could he raise a child with her, a child who would be part human, part alien? I don't know what to say, Max admitted, his voice quiet. I'm not sure I'm the right person for this. Zoreth stepped closer to him, her presence both comforting and intense. I know this is difficult, but I believe in you, Max. You are more than what you think you are, and together we can create something great. Max swallowed hard. He thought about Earth, about the people he had left behind. He thought about the life he had known, one that was simple and predictable. But this was something completely different. He couldn't help but feel the excitement building inside him. It was scary, but it was also thrilling. He was being asked to play a part in something much bigger than himself. I don't know how to be a father, Max said, his voice low. I've never even thought about having kids. I don't know anything about alien babies or how to raise them. Zoreth smiled, a gentle smile that made her seem more human than alien. That's why we will learn together. I will teach you, and you will teach me. It won't be easy, but we will find a way. I believe that our child will be special, Max, and that child will need both of us to guide them. Max took a deep breath. The decision seemed impossible, but at the same time, he felt like he had no choice. Zoreth was right. This was bigger than anything he had ever imagined. And deep down, he knew he couldn't turn back. Okay, he said, the words coming out more firmly than he felt. I'll do it. I'll help you. I'll do whatever it takes. Zoreth's eyes softened, and for a moment, Max saw something in them that he hadn't seen before. Gratitude. Respect. She stepped forward and placed a hand on his arm. You will not regret this, Max, she said quietly. Together, we will create a future no one ever expected. Max looked into her eyes, feeling both terrified and exhilarated. He had just made a choice that would change his life forever. But in that moment, he felt a strange sense of peace. He didn't know exactly how this would all work out, but he knew that he wasn't alone. He had Zoreth by his side, and together they would face whatever challenges came their way. As the ship sped through the stars, Max realized one thing. The adventure of a lifetime had only just begun. A fast pregnancy. Max sat in the quiet chamber of Zoreth's ship, looking out at the stars. It had been only a few weeks since he had agreed to help her create a child, but everything was already changing so fast. He could still hardly believe what was happening. The alien princess had asked him to father her child, and now there was no going back. But he never imagined how quickly things would move. Zoreth had explained that her species, the Yavani, had a very different way of doing things. Their pregnancies were much faster than humans. She told him that Yavani women could carry a child in just a few short months, compared to the long 9 months it took humans. Max had been shocked when he first heard that. How could a pregnancy move so fast? He had no idea what to expect. Every day, Zoreth seemed to grow more and more radiant. Her body was changing in ways Max could not understand, but she explained it to him in simple terms. The baby inside her was developing at an incredible rate. Max could see the signs. Her eyes glowed more brightly, her movements became more graceful, and even her skin shimmered in a way that made her look otherworldly. One evening, Max sat with Zoreth in the common room, watching her as she relaxed. her hands resting gently on her stomach. Her face was peaceful, but there was a certain intensity in her eyes that Max couldn't ignore. "You're growing quickly," Max said, his voice still filled with wonder. "It's hard to believe how fast this is all happening." Zoreth smiled softly. "Yes, it is unlike anything your species has experienced. The Yavani are born quickly and grow quickly. Our bodies are designed for it. We live in a world where survival depends on how quickly we adapt to changes. A fast pregnancy is just one part of that." Max nodded slowly, trying to take it all in. He still felt a little overwhelmed by everything, but Zoreth's calmness made it easier. She had always been so sure of herself, so confident. It was one of the things that had drawn him to her. She knew what she wanted, and she was determined to make it happen. As the days passed, Max noticed something else. Zoreth's connection to the child seemed to grow stronger with every passing day. She would speak to the baby in her own language, her voice soft and full of affection. Max had never heard anything like it before. Her words seemed to resonate with the air itself, as though the baby could already hear her. It was both beautiful and strange to witness. One afternoon, Zoreth called Max to her side. She was standing in front of a large, glowing display on the wall, a map of the stars projected in the air. She had been studying it for a while when Max walked in. "Max," she said, turning to him with a serious expression, "the time is drawing near. The child will be born soon." Max's heart skipped a beat. He had expected the pregnancy to take months, not weeks. "Already?" he asked, his voice filled with surprise. Zoreth nodded. "Yes, the process moves fast for us. And now, the time is almost here. I wanted you to be prepared. Our culture has certain traditions when it comes to birth. I want you to understand what will happen." Max stepped closer, his curiosity growing. "What kind of traditions?" Zoreth explained that, for the Yavani, birth was a sacred event. It wasn't just about bringing a new life into the world. It was about the strength and unity of the family. The father played an important role in the process, even though their species didn't carry the child themselves. The Yavani believed that both parents had to be deeply connected to the baby, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. The father is there to support the mother and the child during birth, Zoreth explained. He must be present, not just in body, but in spirit. It is a time of bonding, a time of unity. Max listened carefully, trying to understand what she was saying. He had never thought about childbirth in these terms before. He was used to the human way of doing things. He had seen births in hospitals, with doctors and nurses around. But for Zoreth and the Yavani, birth was a much more intimate, personal experience. Zoreth's eyes softened as she looked at him. "I want you to be with me, Max. I want you to help me bring our child into the world. Together." Max took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. He had agreed to help her create this child, but now it felt real. This wasn't just about having a baby. It was about being part of something much larger. A child that was half human, half Yavani, a child that could change the future. And he would be there, by Zoreth's side, through it all. "I'll be there," Max said, his voice steady. "I'm not going anywhere." Zoreth smiled, and for the first time, Max saw a flash of emotion that wasn't just calm strength. There was warmth in her eyes, a tenderness that surprised him. It made him feel closer to her, closer to the child they were about to have. The days flew by, and soon the moment arrived. Zoreth's body had grown even more radiant, and the time for birth was drawing near. Max stood by her side as she prepared for what was to come. He could feel her strength and determination, but there was also a quiet excitement in the air. This was their moment, the moment they had both been waiting for. Max held her hand, ready to face whatever came next. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew one thing. He would be there for Zoreth and their child, no matter what. The fast pregnancy had brought them closer together, and now, As the stars continued to shine outside their ship, Max felt ready for the next chapter in this unbelievable adventure. Enemies in the shadows. Max had never felt the weight of silence as strongly as he did now. The ship was still, the hum of the engines almost comforting in its regularity. But there was something different about this silence, something lurking in the shadows. Zorath had been distant for the past few days. She had told him the birth of their child was approaching, and she needed to focus on preparing herself mentally. But Max could feel there was more to it than just the upcoming birth. He noticed how her eyes would often scan the room, how her shoulders would tense when a door opened or when someone came near. Something was wrong. As the days went on, Max grew more aware of the unease hanging in the air. Zorath's calm exterior hid a deeper worry, and Max wasn't sure if it was about the pregnancy, their future, or something else entirely. It wasn't until late one night that Max got his answer. The ship had docked at a remote space station, far from any known human or Yavani settlements. Zorath had said it was necessary for medical checks. Max wasn't sure why they couldn't have just gone to a more populated area. But he trusted her, or at least he thought he did. He walked through the quiet halls of the ship, heading towards the medical bay to check on her. But as he passed a corridor, he stopped. There was a soft noise, barely audible, but it caught his attention. A shadow moved just around the corner, disappearing before he could see who or what it was. His instincts kicked in. Something wasn't right. Max hurried to the medical bay, but when he arrived, he found the door slightly ajar. His heart raced as he pushed it open slowly. Zorath was there, sitting at a desk, her back to him. But she wasn't alone. A figure stood in the corner of the room, hooded and dark, watching Zorath. Max's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't see their face, but there was something unsettling about the person's presence. It was like the air itself seemed to shift when they moved. Zorath. Max called out, stepping into the room. He tried to keep his voice steady, but he could feel the tension in his chest. Zorath turned quickly, her expression changing from calm to one of alertness. Max, you should not be here. Her tone was firm, but there was a flicker of worry in her eyes. The figure in the corner didn't move. Zorath stood up from the desk, her gaze never leaving the stranger. What is this? Max asked, his confusion growing. Who is that? Zorath sighed, her voice quieter now. Max, this is Korek. He is an old acquaintance of mine. Max felt a chill run down his spine. The way she said it, as if Korek were someone from her past, made him uneasy. He didn't like the way Korek was standing there, silent and imposing. He didn't look like anyone who would be friendly. Zorath stepped forward, closing the distance between her and Max. Korek is one of the leaders of a faction of the Yavani. He disagrees with the way I have been leading our people, and he does not approve of my relationship with you. Max felt a knot form in his stomach. What does that mean? Are you saying he's an enemy? Zorath's expression hardened. Yes. Korek and his followers believe that the Yavani should remain isolated from other species. They fear what a mixed child, our child, could mean for the future of our people. They want to stop it. Max could hardly believe what he was hearing. They want to stop us from having a child. Zorath nodded. Yes. And that is why I have been keeping my distance. I needed to protect you and our child. Max felt a surge of anger. How could anyone think that a child, especially their child, could be a threat? It didn't make sense. But as he looked at Korek, he realized that this wasn't just about a disagreement. It was about power. Some people, like Korek, didn't want things to change. They wanted to keep control, and they saw Zorath's decision to have a child with a human as a threat to that control. You don't belong here, Zorath. Korek finally spoke, his voice cold and harsh. Your people will never accept this child, and you will ruin everything for the Yavani by allowing this to happen. Zorath stood tall, her eyes fierce. I am the leader of my people. I will make this choice, and I will not let fear stop me. Korek's eyes narrowed, and he took a step forward, his hand reaching for something at his side. Max's heart raced. Was he about to draw a weapon? "I will not let you destroy everything we've built," Korek growled. "And if I must, I will stop you." Max didn't know what to do. He was just a mechanic, not a fighter. He wasn't ready to take on someone like Korek, but he also knew he couldn't let this man threaten Zoreth or their child. "I'm not going to let you hurt her," Max said, his voice shaking but firm. Korek looked at him with a smirk. "You're just a human. You don't know what you're dealing with." Before Max could respond, Zoreth stepped between them, her voice strong and commanding. "Enough, Korek. If you want to fight me, you will do so in the open, but I will not let you harm anyone in this ship." Korek hesitated for a moment, his eyes flicking between Max and Zoreth. Finally, he sneered, "This is not over. I will be watching." With that, Korek turned and left the room, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Max and Zoreth stood there, the tension between them palpable. Max's heart was still racing, but now he felt a new determination rise within him. They were not just fighting for their child. They were fighting for their future, and Max wasn't going to let anyone stand in their way. The birth of the child. Max stood by the door of the medical room, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the excitement and fear swirling inside him like a storm. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment that would change everything. Zoreth's child, their child, was about to be born. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind. Zoreth had grown more radiant with each passing day, but also more focused. She had told him that the Yavani birth process was quick, but it wasn't easy. It was a natural, intense process that tested both the mother and the father. Max had no idea what to expect, but he knew he had to be there for Zoreth, no matter what. Zoreth's calm voice echoed through the intercom system. "Max, come in." Max took a deep breath, pushing open the door. Inside, Zoreth was lying on a bed, her body surrounded by soft, glowing lights. The room was quiet, filled with a peaceful energy that was somehow both calming and surreal. Zoreth looked up at him, her face calm but focused. Her eyes were filled with determination, and yet there was a softness there too. She was ready. Max walked to her side, taking her hand gently in his. "I'm here, Zoreth. I'm not going anywhere." She smiled, a small but genuine smile. "I know, Max. I trust you." Zoreth closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The air in the room seemed to change, growing thicker with anticipation. Max could feel it too. This was no ordinary birth. This was something special, something beyond what he could fully understand. Zoreth's breathing grew deeper, more intense. Max watched as she clenched her jaw, her body tensing with each wave of pain. He wasn't sure what he should do, but he stayed close, holding her hand, offering his presence as a form of strength. He remembered what she had said about the Yavani way. Birth was a time for both parents to connect, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. "Focus on me, Zoreth," he whispered, his voice soft but steady. "We're in this together." Zoreth nodded, her grip tightening on his hand. I know." For hours they waited together. The time seemed to stretch on forever. The pain was clearly intense, but Zoreth never cried out. She was strong, her determination unshaken. Max was in awe of her, watching as she handled the birth process with a calmness that only someone from her world could possess. Suddenly, Zoreth gasped, her body stiffening as she let out a sharp breath. Max's heart skipped a beat. "It's coming," Zoreth said, her voice a little breathless, but filled with resolve. "I'm almost there." Max couldn't help but feel the gravity of the situation. They were about to bring a child into the world. His child, her child, a child that was part human and part Yavani. Max had never imagined himself in this position. He had never even thought about becoming a father. But now, with Zoreth beside him, and their baby about to be born, everything felt right. It was like the universe had been guiding him here all along. Zoreth's breathing grew faster, more erratic. Max rubbed her hand gently, offering what comfort he could. "You're doing great, Zoreth. You're almost there." With a final push, Zoreth let out a breathless cry, and Max felt something shift in the air. The room seemed to come alive, the lights flickering gently, as if the very ship itself was reacting to the birth. And then there was silence. Max looked down at Zoreth, her face still filled with strain, but also with a deep sense of accomplishment. And then he heard it, a soft, high-pitched cry. The baby. Max felt a rush of emotion flood over him. He had no words for it. The tiny sound that came from the baby was like music to his ears. He couldn't believe it. It was real. Their child was here. Zoreth let out a sigh of relief, her body relaxing as the pain subsided. Max looked down at her, his heart swelling with pride. She had done it. She had brought their child into the world. The medical droid, which had been standing by, moved quickly to help, gently lifting the baby and placing it in a small, glowing cradle. Max could hardly take his eyes off the tiny creature. The baby was beautiful. Its skin had a soft, glowing hue that was almost ethereal. Its eyes, though still closed, held an unmistakable shine. There was something otherworldly about it, something that reminded Max just how special this child was. Zoreth reached out weakly, her hand trembling slightly. "Our child, Max," she whispered, her voice full of awe. Max bent down beside her, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. "You did it, Zoreth. We did it." He watched as the medical droid cleaned the baby, making sure everything was perfect. He could feel the joy and wonder in the air, a sense of completion, a sense that this was just the beginning of something amazing. Zoreth smiled up at him, her eyes glistening with tears. "Max, I want you to meet our child. This is our future." Max's heart swelled as he looked down at the baby, still too young to fully understand the world around it. But Max knew one thing for sure. This child was the start of a new era, not just for him and Zoreth, but for both their people. A child that carried the best of both worlds, a symbol of unity, hope, and the future. Zoreth's eyes locked with his, and Max knew there was no turning back. They had brought something beautiful into the world. And together, they would raise this child to be more than anyone could ever imagine. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the ship and the soft glow of the medical room, Max felt a deep sense of peace. He didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it. A new future. Max stood on the balcony, gazing out at the stars. The ship had set course for a new world, a place far from the old conflicts and old fears. It was quiet now, the sound of the engines steady, and the lights of distant planets twinkling in the vast expanse of space. But inside Max, everything had changed. Zoreth stood beside him, her hand resting gently on his arm. Their child slept peacefully in the next room, wrapped in a soft, glowing blanket. Max couldn't help but smile every time he thought about the little one. Their child, born of two worlds, human and Yavani, was their future now. Max had no idea what the future would hold, but one thing was certain: it would be something special. "We did it," Max said softly, his voice filled with wonder. Zoreth nodded, her eyes sparkling in the dim light. "Yes, Max. Together, we have created something new. Our child will grow to be a bridge between our two peoples." Max turned to look at her, his thoughts swirling. He had never expected to be here, standing on the edge of something so big, so important. His life had always been simple, routine. But now it was filled with possibilities. "What do you think the future holds for our child?" Max asked, his voice full of curiosity. Zoreth's smile softened as she thought for a moment. "I believe our child will be more than just a symbol of unity between our species. They will be a new beginning. The Yavani and humans have lived apart for so long. Our child will show both worlds that there is another way, that we can grow, learn, and thrive together. Max felt a deep sense of hope at her words. For the first time, he could see a future that wasn't full of conflict or division. The child they had brought into the world could be the change they had both longed for. But even as he thought about the possibilities, there was a part of him that couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. Zoreth had been right about the enemies in the shadows, the people who still didn't understand or accept the bond between humans and HFY. There would be challenges ahead. He knew that. "I hope you're right," Max said, his voice thoughtful. "But we both know there are people who won't accept our child. There will be those who see this as a threat." Zoreth's expression turned serious, but there was no fear in her eyes. Only determination. "Yes, there will be those who resist. But I will fight for our child, Max. I will fight for us. Our love, our family, is more powerful than any hatred they may have." Max took her hand in his, feeling the strength in her words. He knew she meant every word. Zoreth was a leader, a warrior in her own right. She had faced enemies before and had never backed down. And now she was fighting for their future. Together. Max smiled, a sense of peace settling over him. "I'll fight with you, Zoreth, no matter what comes." Zoreth smiled back, her hand gently squeezing his. "I know you will, and together we can make the future better for our child." Just then, the soft cry of their baby echoed from the room behind them. Max's heart swelled with love as he turned toward the sound. "It's time to go to our child," Zoreth said, her voice full of warmth. Max nodded, and the two of them walked into the room where their child slept. The tiny baby was curled up in the cradle, its skin glowing softly in the low light. Max stood beside Zoreth, gazing down at the little one. Their child was small, fragile, but there was a sense of power in the child's presence. It was the promise of something new, something better. Zoreth bent down, gently lifting the child into her arms. Max couldn't help but smile at the way she held their baby so carefully, so protectively. "This is our legacy," Zoreth whispered, her voice full of love. "This is our future." Max stood beside her, watching the two of them, his family. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be battles to fight, both on the outside and within. There would be people who didn't understand, people who tried to tear them apart. But Max wasn't afraid anymore. He had found something worth fighting for, and he would protect it with everything he had. Together, they would build a future where the past didn't have to define them. A future where their child could grow up in a world where both humans and HFY lived in peace. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about hope. It was about creating a new world for their child to inherit. A world where love, understanding, and unity were the foundation. Max turned to Zoreth, his eyes filled with determination. "I'll be by your side, always." Zoreth smiled, her eyes reflecting the same strength. "And I will be by yours. Together, we will create the future."